around.
Right.
Yeah,
You don't need that making the headlines.
exactly. Yeah. A strange new world we find ourselves in, but I've been impressed with the response back home here. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing, the type of collaboration, coordination that's happening to stay out ahead of this thing.
Absolutely. And I always say when the businesses are down, that's when the chambers rise up. That's when they turn to us the most. So, but
Good.
you are a very busy man, and I know our room is full and continuing to fill up here. So I'm going to break our tradition, and I'll do overviews of the website and updates that we have here at the chamber at the end, so that you can get on your way, Congressman.
Good.
So.
How much time do we have here, Vicki?
I think your team said about half an hour if you want to take it. And so just a housekeeping thing for all of you. There is a chat button down at the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer. If you're on your mobile phone, I believe there's 3 dots, and that's where if you have any questions for the Congressman, you can certainly post those. So with that, I give you the floor.
Great. Well, thank you, Vicki. Thanks for setting up this call. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy right now. It's kind of a strange environment we're operating under, obviously, but this is kind of the new normal, at least for the foreseeable future. We'll make the best of it. As I was just telling Vicki, I had a chance to reach out to a lot of our county and public health officials, obviously working closely with our healthcare providers. The response back home has been very impressive. The type of interagency, interorganization collaboration, including with the private sector. You're hearing all this talk about making sure we're bending the curve on this virus. Well, the key to doing that is staying ahead of that curve. And that's with proper social distancing and all the public health measures that we're being asked to take right now. And I see a very good response of that happening right here. So, and those communities that have done this quickest and most aggressively, they tend not to get hit as deep or for it to last as long. So hopefully we'll be able to continue that. Listen, I just wanted to give people a quick update on the action that's been taken in Congress, working with the administration the last few weeks. We've been working very fast in a bipartisan fashion, trying to address the needs and the challenges that exist from both the healthcare crisis and the economic crisis right now. And by legislating at the speed of light, we recognize it's not going to be a perfect response. We're not going to be able to touch all the bases. I feel it's a good initial response, though, with what's needed. Obviously, the individual rebate checks going out to individuals and families right now to help them pay their bills. You've probably been hearing a lot about the Small Business Administration loan program. We can talk more about that in a second and how that's going to work. But in essence, we're trying to help small businesses with payroll protection by paying for those expenses now for the next 2.5 months, along with any utility or rent or mortgage payments that small businesses, so those small businesses don't feel compelled to have to lay people off and put them on UI benefits during that period of time. Kind of building a bridge to the other side, that once we get control of the virus, small businesses will be able to recall their workers and we'll be able to get back up on our feet as quickly as possible with economic recovery, rather than having you dip back into the labor pool. And we know how challenging and how competitive that was even before the virus broke out. And then additional assistance to our healthcare providers. We still need to ramp up our personal protection equipment that they need to keep themselves safe. We need more ventilators, more respirators for the patients that they're going to have to treat. The president's starting to exercise the war powers authority that he has to get the private sector to step up with the production lines that we need right now. But we're still very much playing catch up with all that, along with the comprehensive testing regime. We're not where we need to be at that stage yet, but that too is going to be important so we can track the virus and see where it's going so we know how to cut it off and how we can best respond to it. And then in the latest package too, we did have some additional funding assistance for state and local governments. Their budgets are getting pounded right now because of the economic decline and the drop in revenue, and they're going to need some assistance. There are a lot of other measures contained in the package that we can go into. But for the sake of time, Vicki, maybe we can open it up to ideas or questions or suggestions, and I'll try to be as helpful as I can be. And as we move forward, let me also offer the full resources and the assistance from my office. Of course, I've got a toll-free number that you can call anytime, 888-442-8040. That's 888-442-8040. Or you can just go to my website, kind.house.gov. And I've got staff here who are really digging into the details of these various programs right now. and trying to come up with answers as we're still trying to stand them up here in the next few days. So there's a lot happening. We know there's a lot of confusion out there surrounding this, and we're going to try to do the best we can and be as responsive as we need to be, working with our local and state officials to get through this.
I always forget about the mute.
Oh.
Just so everybody knows, I did put the 800 number in the chat there, as well as the website. We have 2 questions. What is the timeline for the SBA loan apps to be available for lenders, to lenders?
Yeah, we're trying to do it 2 ways. One is online, and those who have utilized the SBA program have probably done this before, and we're hoping that's going to be up and fully operational by the end of this week. We're using an existing program, so we don't have to recreate something, which would naturally take much longer. But my other advice is get in touch with your local lender, someone you've already got a business relationship with. We're expanding the definition of certified lending institutions that can help get the SBA loans out the door as quickly as possible. Credit unions, more community banks, just expand that universe of lenders that can work directly with you all to qualify for the program and then get that money flowing to you. So if you're looking to get in the queue quickly, one of my pieces of advice is get in touch with your local lender and see if they're standing up with the capability to do all this. If they're not, they'll know who is in the community, and they can direct you accordingly.
Sounds great. Another question, are you allowed to apply for both the PPP loan and the EIDL loan?
It's my understanding it is. It's kind of a dual program right now, and a little different function with it, but I think they both speak to different needs that small businesses have. Now, the definition of a small business, we tried to make this as expansive as we could, 500 or fewer employees. Now, I know that doesn't cover everyone. I've been getting some phone calls of businesses in our area that are slightly above it or whatever, to see if there's some discretion with it too. So we're working that end of it at the same time.
I know there's some discussions already of the next version. Do you foresee that that's going to happen?
Yeah, I'm confident Congress, working with the administration, stands ready, willing, and able to respond to the needs that exist. We have over the last few weeks as quickly as we can, and I think we're poised to offer more help to naturally keep people as safe and healthy as we can, but try to blunt the effects of the economic downturn that we're facing because of the social distancing that's being asked.
This one's coming from Nathan Franklin. Any insight into how Health and Human Services will allocate funds from the $100 billion dedicated to hospitals?
Yeah, we've got inquiries, Nathan, in that what type of formula they're going to use, what type of distribution they're going to come up with. You guys, by the way, have been doing a fantastic job. I'm just so proud of our healthcare providers in our area and how they were quickly able to step up with no cost drive-through testing and all the preparations that you guys have been making, anticipating the worst, but hoping for the best. And that's, I think, exactly the response that we need to be taking right now. But I am, as we've talked about before, Nathan, I'm concerned about the status of our rural healthcare providers and the position they might be in if they see a capacity surge showing up at their doorstep, and what plan B, C, and D might look like for them. So I've been particularly focused on the rural aspect of all this too, making sure we don't get overwhelmed in our communities with that. But we're looking forward to continuing to work constructively with Gunderson, with Mayo and Marshfield and the other providers around the state to ensure you're getting what you need, especially in the PPE area and the ventilator area that I'm hearing a lot about these days.
Again, there's the comment, the chat area, if you all have questions, and then one appears. Any insight on if the PPP loan cap can or will be raised to allow for use by the late filers?
I'm not sure if there's any deadline for filing of this right now. We'll have to double check on that and see just how restrictive they're going to approach it. But everything was done under the legislative intent of maximum flexibility, maximum discretion with these programs. So we weren't trying to put too many handcuffs on these federal agencies when the clear intent is to try to get this assistance out as quickly and seamlessly as possible.
Any more questions out there? I know I'll just provide feedback of what I'm hearing, Ron, and that
Yeah,
is our small businesses. Obviously, the Families First goes into effect tomorrow, and they see things like continuing to pay their employees, and so that causes some angst. Obviously, as I
right.
said in our call with the city of La Crosse earlier today, that cash is king. And I think the benefit of the federal program is that it takes care of the payroll burden. So that would normally be the place that businesses would cut because that's some dollars leaving. But as I've been saying, our chamber is starting to focus on, so what do they need to reboot and what kind of cash is available and where are the gaps? So that's really where the conversation's starting to shift.
Yeah, we're seeing that in the corporate bond market too. There's been a rush to cash and a lot of dumping of those bonds. And quite frankly, that was a concern I've had for a number of months now, is the huge increase in corporate debt that we were seeing throughout our economy. And I actually raised that issue with Treasury Secretary Mnuchin about a month and a half ago when he was testifying before my committee, and whether he too was seeing it and concerned as I was. And before this crisis just blew up at our doorstep. So it's still a concern we're looking at. Obviously, the Federal Reserve has been pumping a lot of liquidity in the various markets right now too, to help prop things up and build bridges to the recovery period. And I know they've intervened in the corporate bond market, municipal bond market too, given where state and local budgets are going right now. So we're working very closely with the Fed because they've got a whole nother arsenal of tools that they're deploying in an unprecedented fashion. It's never been done to this extent before, nor has Congress passed a $2.3 trillion emergency funding bill before. So we were trying to do it with speed in mind, but also with appropriate guardrails on it so that there is some oversight and some accountability that goes with it, but without being too restrictive at the same time. So it's kind of a tough balancing act that we're trying to pull off here. But if we're going to err on the side of getting the liquidity out there as quickly as we can so things don't start freezing up and shutting down.
Can I ask a specific question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, great. My name's Jen Walker, and I appreciate this so much that you're coming on and talking about things. So, and I'm a small business owner. I own Charlotte's Bridal in La Crosse. And
Yep.
So I've have enough saved for a month worth of expenses and stuff. So I'm good there. And I wanted to keep my employees on, but is there a difference between the full-time employees and the part-time employees? I want to rehire my part-timers, but I don't know if I should or not. What do you suggest for that?
Yeah, Jen, there isn't. There's no distinction. This covers entire payroll needs that you have, whether full-time equivalent, or part-time employees. Again, the goal is to enable you to keep them on payroll so that they're not let go on UI. And then when it's time to recover, you're having to scramble and either try to rehire at that point, or you're in competition with everyone else for your labor needs again. So we're trying to avoid that as much as possible. But I certainly appreciate you got a cash crunch right now. That's why it's very important that we try to step up this program. And the best guidance that we've gotten so far is that by the end of the week, SBA is hoping that they'll have things online and ready to work with the local lenders. So thanks. I think my wife got her dress from you, by the way.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I know my employees are like top notch, my most important asset. So I just want to make sure they're protected. So thank you for that. And thanks for doing all of it that you're doing. I know you guys, This is like the first time small businesses have been like bailed out or helped or assisted. And we really appreciate it. I've been in tune to it completely. So I really thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're keeping an eye on the marriage market too, making sure that somehow there's a path forward for those young couples that want to get married. But it was a beautiful dress, by the way, and it's still hermetically sealed. So we got her 25th wedding anniversary coming up, and she's talking about breaking it out for that occasion.
Oh my gosh, so fun. I love it. Thank you so much. We're staying positive and doing social media and stuff. So we're keeping everybody excited still to come back when we can.
All right.
Thank you.
Jen. Thanks.
Excellent. There is a question here about unemployment and the amounts. The concern is if they were, sorry, I'll just read it. With the unemployment plus $600 for those that can file unemployment due to COVID, many employees will be making more than if they were working. yet self-employed folks are ineligible for any funds at all. Any thoughts on future considerations on how to balance this out?
Yeah, first of all, now to qualify for UI benefits, you have to be laid off. So you can't quit your job and sign up. So there's already that restriction in place. So we're not anticipating people are going to just suddenly quit their jobs in order to get the additional benefits under UI. But it's something that we're certainly aware of. It's been raised in the course of discussions. We're going to keep a very close eye because that extension of benefits is for 13 weeks. So we'll have a chance to revisit at that time. My best guess is we're not going to be out of the woods at the end of that 13 weeks. There's still going to be a lot of work to contain the virus and deal with that at that time. But I'll have to go back and check because I think the sole proprietor, the self-employed also qualify for UI benefits under the legislation that we just passed, realizing that their businesses are going to be hard struck too, and they need some temporary fallback measure themselves. So we'll certainly look into that and try to post something, but I'm pretty confident that the self-employed and sole proprietors would also qualify for the new UI program. And in Wisconsin, check me if I'm wrong, but I think the average UI was about $400 a week. Now with the 600 plus up, you're close to 1,000 a week, which hopefully will help people pay their bills and stay afloat during this time.
Yes, the self-employed are included. I do know that for a fact. And then the other piece of feedback that I have gotten is the one flaw with the checks that are coming direct to individuals is it's based off of your last year's income. And if you have business owners who had a great year, of course, last year and whose business now just closed temporarily, that they're not getting that relief that they can as an individual. And I know that's a timing.
Yeah, Vicki, it's my understanding it's the most recently filed tax form. So if you were able to get your taxes done this year already, that will be based on that rather than the previous years. But we're talking about 2018, 2019, the difference between that, I guess, right now, since we're filing in 2020. So yeah, I mean, at some point you got to make a decision what you're going to base it on. And IRS Treasury said it's going to be the most recently filed tax documents that will determine that.
Congressman,
another question: do you feel Wisconsin will be on quarantine all through April?
Well, I think that's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? And no one, I think, can answer that definitively. This is going to be driven by the virus, and it's going to be based, I hope, on the best medical and scientific advice that we're getting as policymakers, and let the medical and scientific experts kind of drive this policy of what's necessary. And it's going to be awfully hard, I suspect, to ask people to return to work prematurely and tell them to ignore the bodies piling up in the corner. I hope we don't come to that point here in Wisconsin, but the reality will be if the virus isn't controlled or contained at a sufficient level, I don't think we're going to see consumer or business confidence bounce back as quickly then. So again, the long-term answer to all of this is developing that vaccine that will inoculate the global population to guard against that. But we could be still a year out from the earliest predictions with that. And then Dr. Fauci from CDC just, again, warned us that since this is the first go-around with the virus, that we could see a boomerang effect come the fall when temperatures start declining again. And hopefully by then there'll be greater herd immunity, as it's called. But nonetheless, we could be in for some ups and downs with this before the skies clear again.
Hey, Eve, I show your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I see Adam. Adam, do you have something?
Yeah, well, Congressman Kine, thanks for taking time to talk to folks. We're a member of the chamber, and obviously we work with a lot of farmers. We don't qualify for any of the SBA stuff ourselves as a co-op, but I'm wondering if there's a strategy on how to engage farmers who traditionally go through FSA to get support, right? They're all small business owners and might have employment, for them to have good opportunity for that SBA support. And secondly, anything else you want to say on what the agriculture outlook looks like with the package that came through?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. And I was just on the phone for about 2 hours today, getting greater definition of the impact with our family farmers with the recently passed bills, but more particular to OV. I'm going to be having a conversation with Bob Lighthizer tomorrow, the trade rep, talking about the butterfat issue with Great Britain that we've been working on, and hopefully I'll get clarification from him that I can pass on to you guys then and get that issue resolved. But one thing that we're trying to clear up right now is whether the family farmers also qualify under the SBA loan program so that they can cover payroll and utilities. And it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get acreage lease payments covered under this. But as you probably saw, there was an additional $14 billion under the CCC program with the USDA that will be going out the door to try to solidify that program. And then an additional $9.5 billion in additional funding for specialty crop producers and some other categories that need help. So my advice to farmers is get in touch with the local FSA office. They should be getting all this information in their offices this week with clear definition of how the programs will work and who will qualify. And again, we're working on another package that's more agriculture specific here too, once we get a little bit more data back on where the markets are going and what we're seeing. I was on the phone today with the Cattlemen's Association, for instance, too, and the fact that restaurants now are closed and fast food places are getting hit hard. The meat market is really taking a hit, and some of the assistance that they might need to get through this tough time. So we'll definitely stay in touch with you guys, Adam, and work closely with you.
Eve, will come to you.
Hi, Ron.
Hi, Eve. Good to see you.
Yeah, in several groups that I belong to in the animal care industry, one of our concerns is that as much as we love the fact that you guys have stimulated the individuals that we had to lay off due to the decline in customers at our facilities, our concern is that they're making more money not working for us. And why would they want to come back?
Well, that's a good concern, but first, they can't qualify unless they're laid off. And I think there's a misconception that this is going to incent people just to quit their jobs to enter the unemployment market, given the additional benefits that we pass. But they are sunsetted now, Eve, so they're not indefinite. And it's for the next 13 weeks, the additional unemployment insurance benefits that were part of this package. We'll have a chance then to reassess whether or not there might be an extension at that point, or if we can start curtailing it to, again, incent people to rejoin the labor market. But my guess is that's a very narrow window that we're shooting for there in the next 13 weeks, given that we were a little slow to the game with the virus here in Wisconsin compared to other places. And we're still waiting for numbers, quite frankly, to get worse before they get better here at home.
Do you think this might have an effect on raising the minimum wage?
Well, there was a minimum wage increase last year in Congress that did not advance in the Senate. I don't see that politics changing at all. And I don't see a lot of activity here at the state level to address the minimum wage either. So my guess is that's something that probably won't happen overnight in light of this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eve. Yep, good to hear from you.
There is a question here. I believe it's from Joe Heim. It just says Joe, but I think it's Joe Heim. Included in the stimulus package, $14 billion for higher education. Do you know what that will be used for?
Yeah, Joe, good to hear from you. I hope you're staying safe and healthy. Give my best to Pat. Yeah, we were just on the phone a couple of days ago with the education department. A lot of this will be discretionary grants given back to the states for higher education institutions and what their need is right now. Part of it's also a continuation of work study funding for the kids that are no longer on campus and can't participate in work study. We're going to continue those programs, continue to fully fund them for the students. Also part of it's for interest relief and principal relief for student loans right now. But we also realize, having been on the phone with a variety of chancellors back home here too, the type of crunch that the higher ed budgets are under right now. $14 billion is not going to get us very far nationwide. So I have a feeling that's something else that we're going to have to address again if there's going to be a fourth package coming out of Washington here in the coming days.
Thank you, Congressman.
Yep. Thanks, Joe.
Any other questions out there? I guess I have one lingering one, Ron, which is, so a lot of the, let's just call it support, if you will, from the Families First Act has been talked about for a while. So how do we better support our families? How do we start to align with other countries and how we support people that need to take off time for family and caring for family? Do you see any of this sticking after this result? Similar to Eve's question about minimum wage, this is about some of these benefits for families.
Yeah, it's a great question. It does reveal some vulnerabilities that we have in our own country when it comes to safety nets for families. We do have in the package we just passed paid sick leave now, paid family and medical leave. A lot of companies are doing that already. Typically larger companies that are best positioned can do it, but there are ways of structuring this to alleviate the burden for small businesses as well. And we're one of the last industrialized nations, developed nations in the world that don't offer universal paid sick or paid family medical leave for the workforce. So this is, I think, something that has opened up a lot of eyes, and I think it's going to renew that discussion, debate about where we need to go to better support workers and families in this global economy that we're trying to compete in right now. So yeah, I would predict that this is a conversation that will be ongoing in light of this crisis, and recognizing too that chances are there's going to be another pandemic at some point showing up at our doorstep. It's the world in which we live today.
There's a question about CDFIs, the Community Development Financial Institutions. Is there a role that they play in this recovery? Has that been discussed?
I'm not sure what the answer is there, but whoever's asking that can certainly contact my office, and Ethan Holmes in my office could probably dig up that information pretty quickly.
Yep, thanks.
Yep.
Jennifer,
Jen?
is there
Sorry, one more quick question. Just thought I'd raise my hand in case. So I do have a quick question, only because I have payroll that's higher, January, March, February, like all the first quarter of the month, I have a higher payroll. So how's it going to work with seasonal employees?
Well, right now it's covering your payroll for the next 2.5 months. So it sounds like the timing of this is pretty good in your eyes, in your estimation. But my guess is that in all likelihood, we're going to have to extend that out even beyond that, because we're not going to, as I said, be free and clear after the next 2.5 months, I suspect, unless something miraculous really happens to turn this equation around for us. So we'd be happy to, though, Jen, if you want to get in touch with us in that and just kind of work through in more detail what the future might look like. I think a lot of this is a little bit unpredictable right now, because we're not sure what type of additional response is going to be required in the coming weeks.
Any more questions out there? Well, thank you, Ron, for joining us. These were all great, great questions to have answers to. We appreciate your time and wish you the very best, and be well.
Well, thanks, Vicki. You too. And again, if there's any further inquiries, I'm sure there will be. By all means, get in touch with my office. We'll try to be as quick in our response to provide some clarification. And everyone, again, I just want to end where I began in this conversation, how impressed I am seeing how this community has pulled together right away, the type of social distancing practices I'm seeing, which is above average nationwide based on the data that's coming in already. And also a response with our healthcare providers. They really are some of the best in the entire world. Seeing them really mobilized to anticipate the worst of this, yet understanding there's a lot of need that still needs to be addressed. So we stand ready to work with all of you, and hopefully we can do this at some point in the near future again. Be happy to. Thanks. Stay healthy, everyone.
Thank you as well. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.